Good morning and welcome to our Budget Engagement Forum here at beautiful Eastern High School. My name is Tomas Talamonte. Yeah, let's clap it up for Eastern High School. Thank y'all, thank y'all. Here in beautiful Ward 7, my name is Tomas Talamonte and I'm honored to serve as Mayor Bowser's Deputy Chief of Staff. We want to welcome you to our Budget Engagement Forum, and we're back in person together, so let's clap it up for that. We have missed so much being with you in person for our Budget Engagement Forums. We thank you for participating with us virtually in the past few years, but we are back in person together. We have an interactive program that we are excited to do with you throughout today's forum. And so this question that we just asked you to fill out, and we want to make sure that you are sharing what is your biggest budget priority for this year. And as you share that, this is a word cloud, so it's filling up with some of those most pressing issues. And we'd like to start with this question because that's really what we're here for today, is to hear from you, from our residents across all 8 wards. We have all 8 wards represented today at the forum. We want to hear from you on those most important priorities, issues, what you want to see funded in the mayor's upcoming fiscal year 24 budget that you came out here to on a Saturday to join us to talk about. You've had the opportunity to play the $100 game by yourself. You're going to do that as a team, as a table in a bit. Have to make some trade-offs, have to make some discussions. But this really helps us context set what we're here for today. I'm saying housing, health, immigration, education, public safety, a lot of important issues that are at top of mind for residents as we prepare the budget process. And so we will be using this interactive tool today to get some feedback from you on the budget process. We'll have opportunity for you to engage with your fellow neighbors at the tables, to engage on the $100 game. And you'll hear directly from not only the mayor, our city administrator, our deputy mayors about some of the past investments we made and the direction we're heading in this next fiscal year. So to get started, and without further ado, I want to introduce Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Well, good morning, DC. It's great to see everyone, and I want to thank our wonderful team at Eastern Senior High School. Give it up for the principal, teachers, and staff. And we, of course, want to recognize our wonderful students. I also want to recognize the members of my administration who are here, agency directors, staff, raise your hands and be acknowledged. Thank you for being here. I also want to recognize our advisory neighborhood commissioners who are here. A&C commissioners, raise your hands. Thank you, commissioners, for being here as well. Well, you heard from Tomas, and I especially want to thank my community relations, deputy chief of staff, MOKers, and all our outreach staff for reaching out and getting so many people here to talk about the budget. Give them a big round of applause. So let me start by saying thank you. I want to thank you for the trust that you have placed in me. Earlier this year, I was sworn in for the 3rd time to be your mayor and to focus on the big issues that are affecting us. The big part of my job and the big part of the work of the DC Council is to make sure that every year we produce a balanced budget that invests in our values and make sure we are improving the lives of our residents and we are strengthening our economy and our infrastructure and the resilience of Washington, D.C. So every year we have these sessions where we're getting feedback from you. You've heard me say that when I served on the council for almost 8 years and worked with 2 mayors, I watched the budget process happen like this. The mayor would work with the agency directors to produce a budget, then send it to the council and then the mayor would go ask the citizens what they thought about it. And I thought that was backwards. I thought the way to do it was before we have solidified our budget, even ideas, to get feedback from you. And I will say that after doing this 8 times, there are always issues that percolate during this process that let me know how intensely DC residents feel about one thing or the other. And some of them have been very, very major investments. You're about to hear from our deputy mayors who lead clusters of agency directors. And what they're going to ask you to do is what you do in your household every month and every year. Look at the money we have coming in and decide how you want to spend that money, recognizing that there are a lot of really good competing issues, but there's a certain amount of money and there's certain priorities that we all have about how we want to spend that money. And so there are big categories of funding. I noticed when we asked the question, what's on your mind, public safety was a big one, and that's certainly right now the biggest one for me. Making sure we have the resources that we need for all of our workers, police officers, violence interrupters, social workers. We have to make sure that that's funded. We also have to make sure that it's working. And that we do some catching up from where we've been in budgets past. We're going to talk a lot about housing. You tell me a lot that affordability, you love DC, but you're a little worried about how much it costs to live here. So what are we doing to invest in housing? And we're going to talk about our people. What do our people need? Education, health and human services, jobs, opportunities. So how does this budget translate to those needs? So that's what we're going to do here today. I'm going to be walking around. We call it a game, a budget game, but it's nothing funny about spending $20 billion. And what you're going to see is the tough job that we have. And what I know is that we work together to balance 8 budgets. We're going to do it again, and we're going to make sure we're investing across all 8 wards. This is what I know. We have some tough work to deliver our comeback, to get over COVID, to get back to growth, to get workers back, tourists back, to make sure our kids are coming all the way back. But I know we have the tools that we need, and we're going to get the job done. So the first part of our morning, I'm going to invite the city administrator, Kevin Donahue, who many of you know from working as the deputy mayor for public safety and justice, and who is responsible with our budget director, Jenny Reed, for working with our agency directors to deliver the budget. So we're going to talk for a few minutes just about the logistics, how it works. And then you're going to hear from the deputy mayors for a few minutes about why you should invest in the programs that they're responsible for. So help me welcome Kevin Donahue.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Donahue, the city administrator, and it's a pleasure to be with you in person. We did this virtually for the past 2 years. It's not the same. This is one of my most favorite and fun activities to do each year. We do multiple each year. I've done probably 30 with the mayor, and it's wonderful. So I think 30% of you have been here before, 70% you're new to this. So let me give some context. If you go to the next slide, the first context is the process. So it's a 4-part process. Why are you here now in February? Because this is when we prepare our budget. We actually start in October, understanding costs for agencies, what it takes to run things next year, and then we hear from you. We finish it in March and give it to the council. They then have hearings where you can participate again and can contribute. We then execute the budget starting in October, and then at the end of the fiscal year, we audit it to make sure we've spent the money in the way that we said we would. Go to the next slide. So it is a $20 billion budget, and this will give you a sense of how we distribute it. So you're going to play the $100 game, and you're going to think of how you think we ought to spend money. Well, this is how we do spend money each year. It changes a bit, but you can see human support services, which is homeless services, mental health services. Medicaid is number 1 with about $6 billion. Enterprise financing, that's where we pay for our retirement funds and service in our debt. Then you see about 20% or $4 billion is for education. That's third. Then you see Public Works and Government Operations, which is probably the biggest number of agencies at about $2.5 billion. Public Safety is about 8.5% or $1.7 billion. Then Economic Development, which includes a lot of housing, is about $1 billion or 4%. So that's how we spend it now. Think about how you would want to spend money. Now the number in the middle is very important, $20 billion. When I did this starting out in 2015, that $20 billion was substantially less. So your $100 game, to make it a proportionate, would have been $80. So an extra 30% of our money, so 20 billion would have been 2015, maybe 16 billion, 15 billion. And that growth makes a big difference in what we can spend money on, how we can invest in your communities. So that's how we spend money now. Look at it closely. Think about how it reflects what you think we ought to do next year. So the final piece of context I'm going to give you, go to the next slide, is to think big. So we have a comeback plan that you can find at comeback.dc.gov that reflects both how we grow our tax base, how we make businesses revitalized, and also how we do it in a way that reflects our values. So that we're growing as a city in an equitable way, we're narrowing inequality, and we're also recognizing that number in the middle in the prior slide, that 20 billion, needs to grow to be able to fund everything we need to do. So as you do this, please think big. This plan stretches over the next 5 years. So don't just think about next year's budget. Think about how it will play a role in the life and growth of the city over the next several years. So those are the three pieces of context. Why you're here now, because this is when you can engage with us. We're formulating the budget. We'll have another chance in March. How we spend money now, and please think big about what you think our city could be. Thank you, and now I'm going to turn it back to Tomas.
All right, let's hear it for the City Administrator. Thank you, City Administrator Donahue. We're going to move on to our next part of the program. We're going to have some interactive questions for you ahead of hearing from our deputy mayors, and then we're going to play the game. But want to make sure, again, if you scan this QR code, you'll be able to start to enter your responses to these questions. Our first question on this portion is, overall, based on what you've experienced as a DC resident here living in DC, what do you think of the way that district resources are allocated? Does it seem right to you? Mostly right? Just need some adjustments? Need some significant changes? Or a total overhaul? This is helpful context setting for us, for our budget team that are in the room. And we want to hear from you, residents, business owners. I see Miss Virginia Ali has joined us. Let's clap it up for Miss Ali. Thank you for being here. This is our budget together, and so we want to hear from you on this process. All right, so it seems mostly right, but needs some adjustments. And we're just give it just a few more seconds to get a little bit more data before we move into our next question. All right, so it seems mostly right, but we just need some adjustments here and there. We appreciate that feedback. We're going to move on to our next question. What is your favorite program or service provided by the district government? So you type in your program name, the service that you rely on, the service that you appreciate. We want to hear that from you. So trash collection, you see SYEP. Do we have any SYEP alumni in the room right now? There we go. So what is that program and service that's most important to you? We want to hear from you. As we start the budget process, and you heard from the city administrator on that contact setting, we're evaluating constantly throughout the year with our Office of Budget and Performance Management how those programs are performing, how they're operating, how effective they are. So this is really important for us to get from you on those programs and services that is your favorite, the programs and services maybe you rely on the most. So keep entering those. It's very helpful for us. HPAP. I know Deputy Mayor Falchicchio is going to love that one. High impact tutoring. Where's Dr. Grant? Cheering. So this is very helpful for us to hear those programs and services and keep entering them. Again, if you're figuring out how to do that, we have a QR code to scan. In the bleachers, our captains got the QR codes for you. They'll show you how to sign up. You can participate fully in the bleachers. So if you need the QR code, wave your hand, and we have a bunch of captains lined up in the bleachers. But it looks like these are some important programs and services for the government that you rely on. So we're going to go to the next question. Give it just a moment as they move to the next question here. I know. Give it just a moment. This is Lindsay's way of getting more money for Octo when we get to the, the budget pitches. All right, our next question is, what's one specific program or service you wish the DC government did better? So what is a program that maybe you like, but you just wish we can strengthen a little bit more or put a little bit more resources towards? So we're seeing DPR, OST, DCHA, youth mentoring. So keep putting those responses in. It's very helpful feedback for us because we have, as you saw, agency representatives from across district government here. And this is important for us to hear this today about those programs that maybe we wish we could do just a little bit better, put a little bit more resources for. All right, we'll just give this just a few more seconds. It's a very thorough response there. Thank you for that one. Alley cleanup has been good, and notary office. I know somebody from the notaries in the room said they'll appreciate that. Judy Gold is here. She'll appreciate that feedback. All right. And then our last question we're going to move to is, what is one specific program or service you think DC government should stop doing and put better resources to? Or put resources, reallocate those resources. So please put your responses in. We want to see what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And even if you don't see your response go up right away, we are getting all of these thorough responses, so want to make sure that we're going to get that data, so we appreciate hearing on that. So we'll just give this one just a little bit more. All right. And then our last question is, you play the $100 game by yourself, and what did you allocate the most in your $100 game that you did individually? Which cluster did you allocate the most money to? I'm seeing these come in. So you did the $100 game yourself. You allocated, as individuals, we make budgets in our personal lives. We make budgets on how we spend. Am I gonna, spend a little bit of money to get a new outfit this month, or am I gonna, what bills do I got to make sure that I take care of on this paycheck? So we asked you to do that individually on the $100 game. Looks like housing, economic development, public safety and justice, education and workforce are neck and neck for the most allocated in your individual budgets. We're going to do this for about 20 more seconds. We want to make sure you fill that in, because this is helpful context setting ahead of us doing this game as a group. Because when we start the budget process, agencies are making their pitches to the mayor and to the administration on what they need. Residents are making those pitches, right? And then we got to come together. We got to make trade-offs. We got to deal with tough decisions on those budget. And so that's what you're going to have to do as a table. You may go in and say, I want $100 to go to government operations, but you got to have a trade-off with your table to get to what is going to be that final budget as a table. So it looks like we're pretty neck and neck. Education and workforce at the top, but followed closely by public safety and justice, housing, economic development. Deputy Mayor Babers, looks like you're going to have to make some strong pitches on infrastructure and the environment, because not getting the most right now, but you'll hear from our deputy mayors. So to kick off our deputy mayor pitches, and we're going to get started on that now, but we're going to do the game as tables, and then we're going to hear from you on how you guys came to those decision points. We're going to put up all your results on the screen, so we'll be able to see everybody's results of the $100 game as a table, and then our bleacher teams, you're going to make sure you're there as well, so don't you worry. But before we do that, we've heard from you on programs that you really love. We've heard from you on programs that you think could just be a little bit better. We've heard from you on programs that maybe you want us to reallocate resources towards. But now you're going to hear from the deputy mayors on past investments, why funds in their cluster is important and why you should allocate the most in this game. And as the mayor said, it's a game, but this is a very serious process and very serious input that we need from you as we prepare the budget. So to kick us off, without further ado, Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, John Falchicchio. John?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Again, another pitch by Lindsay to get more for government operations. All right, can you hear me now? Okay, good. So it was mentioned earlier that we have a DC comeback plan, and now I'm a little bit loud. I think I'm a little bit loud. Is that right? Understatement? I'm good? I see people covering their ears. All right, so I'm going to try to go through it, and as I talk, I think they'll be able to adjust, okay? So earlier we talked a little bit about the DC comeback plan, and when you think about economic development, it's about two things. It's about making sure people have an opportunity to succeed, and it's about making sure that we have the revenue to invest in all the programs that help us do that, right? So that's what housing and economic development, when you look at that category, that's what I want you to think of. And the DC comeback plan has three focus areas: thriving people, successful businesses, and opportunity-rich neighborhoods, right? All right, so when you think of thriving people, let's talk about housing. So how many people here started the day by waking up at home? Not a trick question, but how many people started the day by waking up at home? And you'll also end your day by going home, I imagine. So how blessed are we that we are able to do that? Now, the only thing I ask you to do is to also think about your house and how you think other Washingtonians should be able to have that as well. And that's what investing in housing allows us to do. So we do it through a couple tools. There's the Housing Production Trust Fund, which allows us to produce more housing and more affordable housing. And then there's other tools that we have. How many folks are homeowners here? Raise your hand if you're a homeowner. And then for the folks who aren't homeowners, we want you to be a homeowner too. So what the mayor has done, she took a program that's been around for a while. It's called the Home Purchase Assistance Program. And she took the maximum amount that you were able to get from about $80,000, and she raised it all the way to $202,000. So what that means is that more people are able to afford a home to buy that home. And so as the mayor said, it's not just about affordable housing, but it's about housing affordability for all of our residents. So that's what we're aiming for in Thriving People. Now, successful businesses. And I know a lot of times when people stand up, they say, we put this amount of money in housing, and that's important. But the other side of that is economic development. So let's talk about successful businesses. Through a new program called the Food Access Fund that Mayor Bowser created during the pandemic, we actually are able to invest in DC businesses or DC residents to start businesses. So I don't know if anybody has been to Good Hope Road and gone to Kitchen Savages yet, but Kitchen Savages opened last night, actually. I was trying to see who was out late last night. Kitchen Savages opened last night, and it was actually opened by Darrell Gaston, who is a former ANC commissioner who wanted to be an entrepreneur. He started a food business, he hustled, he did it around the city, and then through Mayor Bowser's support, he was able to open up Kitchen Savages at the corner of Good Hope and MLK. So we want Darrell to keep growing his business. We want to keep investing in those successful businesses. We also want business owners. Are there any business owners here? So I want to tell you about the Commercial Property Acquisition Fund. One of the ways for businesses to thrive is to make sure they take their lease payments and turn it into mortgage payments. So everybody knows the story of Ben's Chili Bowl, right? Well, did you know that, when it was started, it's been with us for over 60 years, but did you know that Virginia Ali in the 1980s decided we're not just going to operate our business here, we're going to own the building. So she had the vision and the foresight. She's right here. Everybody see her at table 4. Let's give her a round of applause. So the Ali family had the vision and the foresight 40 years ago or so when you bought the building. When they bought the building, right? So they had operated for 20 years, and then they said, we're going to buy this building. Sorry, it's a little echoey. We're going to buy this building. So the Commercial Property Acquisition Fund, which Mayor Bowser started and has supported, that allows DC businesses to buy the building that they're in, right? So how many people think we should emulate the model of Virginia Ali and the Ali family? If you do, then I want you to invest more in housing and economic development. All right, then opportunity-rich neighborhoods. And here's a stat for you that we all have to work on together. Depending on the same family of the same income, depending on which neighborhood they live in this city, there could be a 21-year difference in the life expectancy of the children of that family. 21-year difference. There could also be a $31,000 annual income gap when those children grow up, and that's based on whether they live in an opportunity-rich neighborhood or one that isn't. And so part of our work in housing and economic development is to make sure that all of our neighborhoods are amenity-rich neighborhoods, that there's plenty of retail, that there's jobs in those neighborhoods, that there's access to food in those neighborhoods, that there's high-speed internet in those neighborhoods. So when you think about housing and economic development, don't just think about one or the other. Think about the more that we invest in housing and economic development today, when we come back here next year, that $20 billion number will be even higher because we made these critical investments. So thank you all, and I'm going to turn it over next to my colleague, Lindsay Appiah, the Deputy Mayor for for Public Safety and Justice.
Hi, everybody. It's kind of low. I can talk loudly. Can you all hear me? Good morning. Now you all can hear me a little too loudly, so we'll push this back. So hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Appiah. I'm the Acting Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice. Like many of you, I'm a newbie. I'm the new kid on this block. I've been in this position since January. So I'm so honored to stand here to represent the thousands of employees that are working 24/7 in the public safety and justice cluster on your behalf to make our city a safer one. And so, you know, we definitely recognize that the conversation around public safety is one that's oftentimes really heavy and hard. And we acknowledge that. But I want to, if that was all it was, we could never do the work that we do every single day, 24/7. And so I want to take a step back and invite you into the way that we view public safety and justice in our cluster, which is, I compare it to a prism. It's multifaceted, it has lots of different perspectives, but all of it is to put forth light. So this week, right, we had this unseasonably warm week in the district, right? Like, it's winter, but we got this like little break where it was like a sneak peek that better days are on their way, that spring is coming and that new life is just around the corner. That's how we view spring. And so it was like hope, right? So that's honestly how we feel about where we are as a city, that we've had some dark and difficult days, and in some respects we're still there, but we've seen some glimpses of hope and some glimpses of flourishing. I always choose a word of the year, and last year my word was flourish, which I'm going to read the definition because I'm like a nerdy definition person, right? It means to grow well or luxuriantly, thrive, to do or fare well, prosper, to be in a period of highest productivity, excellence, or influence. And we really believe that's where we are and where we're going. The mayor often talks about we're in a comeback, and we are, right? But foundational to that comeback is a feeling of safety, right? So there's, studies that there are two fears that babies have, right? The fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And it doesn't matter what the fears are, it's more about the fact that inherent in us is fear. But what do parents do in that situation? They come in as authority figures to make those babies feel safer so they can grow. And that's what we do in public safety and justice every single day. Like, what we are doing is restoring hope, rebuilding respect, and revitalizing community, right? That's what we're doing in public safety and justice. How are we doing that? By the investments that you see. You all know some of them, but there are 12 agencies across our cluster that are doing all sorts of things every day, right? You see some of them here, and I'll talk about some of them. How are we investing in restoring hope back into our city? Well, by making investments in the Office of Unified Communications, so that when you call, sometimes in the worst moments of your life, that who you encounter is a caring, well-trained, compassionate 911 operator and dispatcher who's able to answer the call. And also, when you partner with us to make your neighborhoods look better, to make sure that you're getting the resources you need, that someone at 311 is there to answer that call as well. How else? Through DC's bravest, right? Nobody is ever upset when FEMS is on the scene. We will say they're like our happiest agency, right? So that we're investing in making sure that they have the resources to show up and to make sure that you are safe in that way. To make sure that you're always getting the right care right now, either through our nurse triage line or our behavioral health diversion programs, right? And yes, absolutely, we will say unequivocally, we are investing to make sure we have enough officers. Because what we hear across the city, and I promise you, we are from young to old, is that people want to feel safe, and they feel safer when they see our Metropolitan Police Department officers out in community. So we're investing there too. How else? We're investing in making sure that our city is a more equitable one through the Office of Human Rights. That's making sure that we're not a city that discriminates in workplaces or in accommodations, no matter what your race, gender, ethnicity, or one of the other myriad of categories that we protect in our city. We're making sure that some of our most vulnerable residents, our youth, our returning citizens, right, are given the care and support and uplifting that they need to find themselves to a positive path through the work that's being done through the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, DYRS, and the Mayor's Office on Returning Citizens Affairs. We are partnering with across the cluster with our friends and associates in DME, the Deputy Mayor for Education, to make sure your kids are able to get to school safely through safe passages, right? So we are across the spectrum, and unfortunately, death is the end of all of us. So we are making sure we're investing in the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner so that you have compassionate care in that transition, in that portion of life as well, right? So that's what we're doing. You see the investments here across the public safety and justice cluster. And so there's a quote by Nelson Mandela that says, I want to read it specifically because we do not want to get his words wrong. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. And so we're asking you, foundational to everything, as I said, is to be safe and to feel safe. And that's what we're doing in the public safety and justice cluster so that everything else that you hear can actually happen. And so when you make your choices, we ask you to invest and to partner with us in doing just this, restoring hope across our city in every neighborhood, in every ward, rebuilding respect for ourselves and for each other, for our city, and revitalizing communities across our city. Thanks. And so I'm going to now turn to my colleague, the Deputy Mayor for Education, Paul Kine. I'm going to give him this mic.
My fellow Washingtonians, let's face it, life is very difficult. Life is difficult for us, it's difficult for our children. So just for a moment, let's pretend that we are in an imaginary place. Let's build something very beautiful in our minds. Let's imagine a city that is truly wonderful for our children. What might this place look like? What might it be like? Well, maybe it's a place where reading rates have grown more than any other city over the past decade. Yes, maybe we live in an imaginary city that number one in the nation. Let's imagine that graduation rates have also grown steadily over the past decade, improving by, I don't know, let's say 15%. And let's further pretend that we live in that most unusual city where public school enrollment has grown and grown and grown for 15 years, including coming out of the pandemic where everybody else saw enrollment drop. And what should early childhood education look like in this city? Near universal? Okay, well, let's say that out of all of our 4-year-olds, more than 80% of them attend pre-K for free. And what about our high schools? Maybe our high schools in this imaginary city offer college credit for students that want it, or credit for work-based learning. And what about funding? Should we say that our imaginary student funding is in the top 3 in the entire nation? Should we say that our microphones work all the time? Should we say that we have increased our public school budget by over 80% over the past decade, nearly doubling it? And let's also imagine that our public school teachers are well compensated, earning 25% more than the national average. What if in this city you could choose what school to attend? From a good neighborhood school to many citywide options. What if most of you actively did choose? What if those choices included dual language and international baccalaureate and career academies? What if, as you choose, most of you got your first choice? How might you feel about schools in this imaginary city? What if, coming out of the travesty of a global pandemic, more than 80% of you, more than 80% approved of how your schools managed through that crisis? Can you imagine? And in this imaginary city, let's finally say that over the past decade, education would have dropped from your #1 problem to solve to something further down the list, like 5th or 6th or 7th. Well, my fellow Washingtonians, I'm here to report that we do not have to imagine. We live in this city right now. It's true. All of it is true. So, I am not here to ask you to invest in something that is broken. I am here to ask you to invest in something that is strong and that is getting stronger and stronger. Let's invest in what we know is working, because we know we have so much more work to do. We have so much ground to cover, especially for our Black and brown students, our students with special needs, our students struggling with math. But we have a path to get there, and we have well-founded hope based on our track record of success. So, here's what I'm asking you to continue to invest in, to build on the successes in our very real city. First, life-changing programming. Let's provide evidence-based, high-impact tutoring to every child that needs it. Let us reimagine high school, giving students new access to high-quality career courses and college courses in high school. Second, safety and wellness. We have got to make sure every child is ready to learn because they are safe, because they feel emotionally supported. And let's provide students with enriching and joyful opportunities, both in school but also outside the school day. And third, people. Let us ensure that our teachers and educators get the support and recognition that they so richly deserve. Now, together, we can do all of this and so much more. We do not have to pretend we can do it. We know we can do it because of the success that we have had as a city. Thank you. And now, I turn it over to my colleague, Deputy Mayor Lucinda Babers. Lucinda?
How's everybody
cluster that you all don't want to give any money to. And guess what? That ain't right. I noticed that you all, housing and economic development, public safety, education. Let me share with you all a few things. First, let me put education and public safety together. Because you all don't want to give us any money, little Johnny, y'all children, he's not going to get to school. Because without crossing guards that the Department of Transportation provides, little Johnny going to be mowed down in the crosswalk. And that ain't right. I don't know if you all are aware that we have a program in our departments of for-hire vehicles called DC School Connect. It is where parents and students who believe that their children can't get to school safely, they can take a shuttle and they can get to school. School, shuttle safety. But guess what? Currently, we have a 300 student wait list because y'all not giving us no money. Y'all believe that DME, education, and PSJ, public safety, are the only way to get little Johnny to school safely. And that ain't right. Department of Motor Vehicles. Some of y'all's children have driver's licenses or learner's permits, and they recently got them. They may be driving themselves to school. Guess what? Did they take a driver ed course in school? No, because y'all don't give DMV enough money to provide that offering. And that ain't right. So your children just driving around, not knowing what they're doing, not able to act in that moment. And that ain't right. So while we live in an imaginary world, me and my agencies got to live in reality. And we know that we need some of that money. We need at least $15, really 20. But I'm not done. Because you all want to give almost all your money to housing and economic development. And that ain't right. Because guess what? That housing, that housing can't get built without Department of Buildings, who must do the inspections. And then those of you all who live in apartments, and y'all talk about y'all have mold. Too bad. Because you all have not provided us with enough money. Our Department of Energy and Environment does the mold inspections. So y'all calling and they don't show up. Because you all have not allocated sufficient funds. Because you all believe that Deputy Mayor for Economic Development gonna come to your rescue. That's not gonna happen. That ain't right. You all do not understand how all of the deputy mayor offices, how we are integrated. I'm even going to help out the assistant city administrator for a minute. Because she's going to come and tell you how she needs $5, and that's all she asking for. Give her $5. Because my agencies need procurements to get through. We need technology. We need things to function. So if you all do not give operations and infrastructure, which is on your sheet of paper, at least $20. That ain't right. And now coming to you is Deputy Mayor Wayne Turnage, Health and Human Services.
Don't quite know how to follow that, but I will try. Good morning, everyone. My name is Wayne Turnage, and I have the distinct pleasure to serve as both the Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services and the Director of the Department of Healthcare Finance. Today, I'm here to ask that you support our funding for the vital services delivered by my cluster, which includes 7 health and human services agencies. As we discuss DC's comeback from the pandemic, one aspect that is interlaced with every aspect of our daily lives is health. Our health status is impacted by so many factors. The grocery stores to which we have access, the quality of the air that we breathe, the water we drink, road safety, safety in our neighborhoods, and the absolute imperative of affordable housing. It's why we say that health exists in all of our policies. We know from empirical data that these factors are strongly correlated with our actual health status, and they are unquestionably the necessary pillars for a vibrant and healthy city. Jurisdictions that neglect these factors do so at their own peril, because those cities will not prosper. For the first time since 2020, the budget you will be voting on will not be executed in the dark shadows of a global pandemic. While COVID is certainly still here, we have made incredible strides, thanks so much to the leadership of our mayor and the impressive compliance by residents like you with our COVID mitigation strategies. Similar to so many political CEOs, with her next budget, Mayor Bowser will be focused on how we return this city to the prosperity and vitality that was evident before the pandemic shuttered businesses, put the brakes on economic growth, and consigned most of us to a life behind the closed doors of our homes and apartments. As you consider your investments today, I bring to your attention the fact that many of the programs that must be funded to bring this city back to where we were exist in my cluster. Recall that last year the mayor made sweeping investments in several critical human service programs, and many of these same programs would need your support in fiscal year 2024. They include funding to support family housing and restabilization efforts, funding for housing vouchers that can be used to move single adults from tenant encampments on the streets and congregate shelters and into apartments, a massive local fund investment to ensure that approximately half of this city's residents have access to health insurance that they otherwise simply would not be able to afford. This important investment puts within the reach of these residents a full range of primary, urgent, and acute care medical services delivered from some of the best providers in the world. The mayor's budget also included a significant investment to home care agencies, which these agencies must use to raise the wages of the direct service care professionals who provide care to our most vulnerable residents. Also, these same investments made it possible for some of our residents who struggle every day with substance use disorder and receive mental health treatment. In many cases, it allowed them to use expanded telehealth services to receive care and guidance and counseling in their own home. In addition, the mayor created funding for a new sobering center that will divert our lower-risk patients from crowded emergency rooms so they can get care in a center. This center is set to open next month, and it will help when you go to an emergency room so you don't have to spend 2 nights waiting for care. Important funding was allocated to provide free dental care to our seniors, hire more nursing and mental health clinicians in our schools, increase the pay of those already there, and this all will ensure that our children will have access to the critical services that they need as the city recovers from this pandemic. And of course, the major investment that the mayor made to bring a new hospital and a healthcare system to the residents of Wards 7 and 8 must never be overlooked. This will put in their neighborhoods for the first time a state-of-the-art healthcare system with a full range of healthcare services, and it will almost certainly reduce the sharp health disparities that exist for the residents in these wards relative to those in the balance of the city. So I hope that all of you, regardless of where you live, will consider the importance of the services traditionally funded in the Health and Human Services cluster, as well as the populations who benefit from these investments. This includes our wonderful seniors, persons with physical and intellectual disabilities, and both adults and children who live on the economic margin and rely upon the city for their publicly funded health insurance. This is a $3 billion investment. So remember, regardless of your station or stature, everyone deserves a fair shot. Thank you. And the next speaker to address you is Lindsay Parker. She's our Deputy City Administrator and our Chief Technology Officer.
Thank you, Wayne. Thanks, Wayne. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Like Wayne said, I'm Lindsay Parker. I'm honored to be the Assistant City Administrator, the Chief Technology Officer for DC government. And I have a question for you. You've now heard from all of my colleagues sitting over here. Did they change your mind about something that you wanted to prioritize in your conversation today? Did anybody change your mind? Yeah. Oh. They're very excited. Are you thinking about giving them more money? Okay, somebody up there is getting more money? Okay. Well, my pitch today is about not forgetting about my agencies. And what happens is they get probably, let's call it 97% of the budget are the folks, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that you see sitting there. And there's 3% left over to really think about government operations, the way that we get things done. And so you heard them mention, actually you heard John mention high-speed internet. Well, my agencies will help with that, right? You heard Lindsay making sure that we were going to answer every call and making sure that the technology that exists to answer those calls is in place. Well, that's the agencies within the government operations cluster that are going to help with that. You talked to Paul about education, and I don't think there's really a day that goes by that I'm not checking in with the superintendent or the chancellor about our buildings, about things that we're procuring, about people that we're hiring. And that's the folks in the government operations cluster that really make sure that those things get taken care of. You heard Lucinda. Lucinda gave me a shout out, actually. She talked about the technology that we need to make sure that we are getting the information from those 311 calls, for instance, and efficiently providing that service and making sure that it's done, right? Those are the folks that are in my cluster that we're trying to make sure that our systems, our technology, are better able to address the things that concern you every day. You also talked to Wayne, and Wayne really, I think our cluster worked most closely with Wayne during the pandemic to really rethink the way that we were getting services delivered to you in a new world, right, during COVID, where we made sure that almost 5,000 processes that at some point were on paper in government, all of a sudden were online. And now what we need to do is make sure that those are even easier to use, right? So you go to Amazon and you easily click a button and you get something delivered to you. The interesting thing is you now expect that of government. And so we need to make sure that we're doing just that. And so we're looking around at our services, at our programs, making sure that we're being more efficient, more effective in getting those to you. And our team within the government operations cluster is working to do that. We're thinking about the people that we need to hire. We're thinking about the things that we need to procure. We're thinking about the workspaces that we need to keep maintained. And we're thinking about the technology to do all of that. And so, my ask for you is today I get $3 in your game. What I'd really appreciate is if you could just find a way to give me $5 I can do a little bit more for each one of those people that you just heard from. Can you give me $5? Okay. Well, I really appreciate it. Tomas, back to you.
All right. Now it's your turn, right? So we're going to break into your tables, and you're going to play the $100 game as a group. We're going to give you some time to do that. If you're on the bleachers, raise your hands, table captains. We have table captains on the bleachers. If you do not see a table captain over there, we're going to get a table captain over there to you guys to make sure that you can play the bleacher game or play the game in the bleachers. Everybody in the room is going to do it. But you're going to have the time now as a table to allocate your $100, have those tough conversations, those tough trade-offs. We're then going to get your results back. We're going to go around the room and do some readouts of those results. And we're going to have some time for some hot topic questions as well. So we want to get started now. Break out amongst your tables. Get started with your table captains. We'll come back together here in just a minute. So thank you all. Our deputy mayors, the mayor, our administration staff will be making their way around the room as well, jumping in on your conversation. So thank you. Let's get started. Thanks all. All right, everybody, going to give you a time check. We got about 6 more minutes. So start making those final pitches. Start getting ready to make those final allocations as a team. Table captains, please make sure you're doing your data entry for your results. We need that data entry for the results before we go around, so please make sure you're doing that on the Google form. We'll come back here in about 8 minutes. Again, we got about 5 more minutes, so start making those final pitches. Coming to consensus as a table. Table captains, please make sure you're entering your data on the form. Thank you. All right, about 3 more minutes, 3 to 4 more minutes. So make sure you come to consensus. You are making sure that your table is finishing up on allocating that $100. Table captains, you're entering the data in the Google form. And then there's going to be an opportunity for some tables to give us their thoughts. All righty. 3 more minutes. Start wrapping up those conversations, making those allocations. You are all the budget directors, so start making that budget. Table captains, please enter those results on the form. All right, start wrapping those conversations. Just about 2 more minutes. If you haven't entered that data, table captains, please do so. Thank you to our bleacher participants. All right, this is your minute warning. 1 minute, and we're going to start hearing from tables about how you came to consensus on your budget. Table captains, please make sure you've entered your table data. All right, we're about to start wrapping, so please make sure you enter that data. Table captains got to enter that data right now. We're about to start readouts. Table 12, please enter your data. Table 14, please enter your data. Table 18, please enter your data. All right, table 12, table 14, table 18, please enter your data. Table 6, please enter your data. All right, that is time. Looks like all tables have entered their data, and we are ready to start calling on some tables to hear about how your negotiations went. Robert, if we can move to the slide that says now for the results. All right. If you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, clap 3 times. Who is ready to share their results? All right, I'm going to need you a little bit louder. Who is ready to share their results? There we go. See, I see some tables already waving, already making sure that they get their notes. So I'm going to need everybody to hush, hush, hush. We're going to get quiet. We want to hear your results. We want to hear your results. So thank you to our table captains who have entered all of the data. We have it live. We will have your sheets here live. So we're going to get the results here in just 1 second. All right, we're ready for results. I'm going to hand this handheld to the mayor.
Hello, everybody. Attention, attention.
We want
This is the moment we've been waiting for. If you're having a conversation, if you could wrap it up so that we can get everybody our attention. Attention. Okay, Thomas, so we going to our first table?
Yeah, we want to see who wants to go first. Let's hear it. You got to be loud. You got to be loud. You got to be loud. We're going to start with table 3. Table 3.
Okay, table 3, I see you made housing and economic development your top investment. Let's hear it.
All right, so here at table 3. So first of all, hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ty Andrews. I'm here representing PAVE, Parents Amplifying Voices of Education. That's all my PAVE family shouting behind me, and I'm representing also table 3 here today at the budget forum. And we would like for the majority of our money to go towards housing and economic development and education and workforce.
Okay.
So
All
we
right.
would like 25 for both of those areas.
All right. Thank you, Pave. Thank you, Table 3.
All right, who wants to go next? I hear. Let's get a mic down at table 17. I see them going loud and in charge over there. Natasha's there with a mic. Table 17.
Hello.
Your mic is on. Just
Hello.
let's get you. Jake, let's get that mic there real quick.
Hello.
All right, Table 17. I see your top investment is infrastructure in the environment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
Why is it? Come on. Why? Why? No, it's actually not. It's education and workforce.
Oh, your captain may
Okay.
have
Oh,
an
I'm
answer.
sorry. I read that wrong. Education and workforce. You're right.
Our why is for OST, because our kids need things to do before and after school, and all the extra breaks that we have been given. Also for school-based mental health supports, because we need clinicians and therapists and all of their likes in the schools.
All right.
That's why.
So thank you, Pave, and thank you, Table 17. And you may already know that I have asked my team to focus on how we can have more parental support for before care and after care. To already join in our incredible out-of-school offerings. But here's also what I've asked them to do. To make sure that we have high-quality programs if we're adding new programs across the entire city. So a program in Ward 8 is as good as a program in Ward 5, is as good as a program in Ward 3. All right? And that goes for everything else. Our DPR programming, our out-of-school programming related to education, and everything that we do in schools. Okay, so we're going to go to another table, and then I'm going to go to a hot topic question. And I'm going to ask the chief of police to ask that question. So if you want to answer the chief's hot topic question, start thinking about it. Okay, next table, Tomas.
We're going to go to table 4. Table 4. Don't worry, bleachers. I see you. We're coming to you.
All right, table number 4. I see your big investment, your top investment is housing and economic development. Tell us why.
Well,
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. So we made housing and economic development our largest section because we understand that in order for the community to have education, public safety, and everything else that follows that, housing is a main priority, and affordable housing is a main priority for all members of the DC community. Afterwards, what came tie was education, workforce at 20, public safety and justice at 20, and following health and human services at 15, and government operations with 5. So we gave them
All
some
right,
back.
thank you, table 4. And let me just say this on affordable housing. I think everybody knows that when I became mayor 8 years ago, we made a big, focused, consistent effort to invest in our Housing Production Trust Fund, where at first we were investing less, really paltry amount, if you ask me, less than $100 million. I committed that we would invest $100 million every single year just using HPTF. Last year, just using HPTF, we did over $400 million for a total of $1.2 billion. So what that is going to allow us to do is meet our goal of 36,000 new units by 2025 and make sure we can make investments in all 8 wards. Whereas we haven't been able to make any affordable housing investments in Ward 3, or we're getting there, we have to. because we want to make sure we're creating affordable housing all across the city. So that's why it's important that we keep our eye during this budget process on the affordable housing investment in the Housing Production Trust Fund. Because it's a big number, $400 million, that we've been able to do, we want to make sure that there aren't little slices to it that make the program less effective. Okay? So keep your eye on that. Hot topic from the Chief of Police, Robert Conti.
All right. Who wants to answer this hot topic question? So we're going to have the Chief ask it, and then we're going to see who wants to answer it. So, Chief?
All right. So this is my hot topic question. First of all, good afternoon. It's good to see y'all. So I've been moving about the room, and as I move about the room, I've heard some people say, why we need the police? I've heard some people say, hey, I got this thing going. I need more presence in my neighborhood. Somebody said, I do. Well, here's the thing I've learned. People respond differently depending on their proximity to pain. That's real. Let that seep in for a second. So when we ask the question about how many police officers, let me just tell you some of the things I think about as I ask this question. I think about the number of calls, the over 600,000 calls for service that our officers respond to in the city. I think about the fact that we are, right now, the lowest staffing numbers that we've been in my 33-year history with this police department. In addition to that, I think about all the new buildings that are going up. Every time I see a crane where people are going to be occupying buildings, at some point, people end up calling the police. I think about everything that's happening in our city when people say, Chief, we want to see footbeats in our communities. When I talk to the principals and say, hey, Chief, we want to see this around our schools. The question is, how many police officers do you think we need? Do you think we have enough police officers in our city? I think about, in addition to all of that, the hours of overtime that our officers are working in our city, an incredible amount of overtime. But that's a question for the residents or the citizens of the District of Columbia to figure out where it is we need to be. So the question is, do you think we have enough officers in our city? Tough question.
Hot topic. Raise your hand if you want to answer the hot topic. Table number 1, you want to answer the hot topic?
So, from somebody who's been doing the work in our city to deal with youth violence since 1996, when I came home from prison, who's not talking from some data outside our city, who's not talking about somebody who's not being affected with crime. And I got to say this. So let's just use one example. We saw the shooting that happened in Ward 6, right? But we seen those same shootings at the Petworth station. We saw those same shootings at the Anacostia station. We saw those same shootings at the Congress Heights station over and over again, right? And the people that I talk to in my community, I'm not talking about the people that just get mad and protest all the time, which is good. I'm talking about the people that say, listen, I'm tired of these shootings, and we want to help the children, want to help our people, but we also want to feel safe. I talk to the interrupters. The interrupters don't want to be the police. They want to be interrupters, right? So somebody has to be the police, right? And in Ward 6, in the same ward where everybody was talking all that progressive, far, right, left stuff, right? The same people said they didn't want the police came back and said, we need the police, right? And they got the police. And they got a plan right away. We're in Anacostia, right here at this table. Historic Anacostia, where almost every other week somebody's getting gunned down. Every other week somebody's getting shot. So what we're saying is, while we do surgery on our people and we deal with the mentality of our people, we need the police, right? And there's some people who say, no, this, no, that. They're not the ones standing in front of the bullets. Everybody who say they don't want to be the police, don't want the police there. I never seen them come out there to confront the people with the guns, right? And we're not saying just lock and throw away the key. But what we got to stop is this insanity. If a child shoots you this morning, if a child carjacked you this morning, you're insane if you think he should be released tonight without an assessment plan, without a strategy. When you got parents saying my child is taking care of me. See, some of y'all ain't been dealing with people in the streets, but the person who's the co-founder with me of Checking Enterprises was one of them children who used to carjack. One of them children who used to rob. And guess what? She got set down for a year. And when she came out, we had programs to deal with her, and she changed her mentality. But don't you come in my community and tell me what I need to do with children who I've been saving since 1996.
All right, table one. Thank you. Anybody else want to answer the hot topic?
I'm gonna go who wants to answer?
But table 3, you've gone. Let me go to table 11. Hot topic.
Chief, you said do we need more police? First, how many police you have on staff now? And what's the process of hiring the police? I'm a single mother with 6 boys, 1 girl. I had 2 boys that recently graduated from Ballou High School, and they applied for the cadet program, and they both got turned down, and I was given no reason why. They was given no reason why. So could you please answer, what's the hiring process for the more police that you requested for? Because I got 2 boys that's anxious to join your team that grew up in Southeast Ward 7, 8, and 5, the tough neighborhoods.
Thank you. So to answer your question, great question. So for our agency right now, we're at about 3,387. For our police cadets, we are the highest that we have been in a very long time at over 120 police cadets. When you talk about the process, and the majority of them are kids from Ward 7 and 8, and a lot of kids from Ballou got recruited by that officer right there, Officer Buckner. I'm sure some folks in the neighborhood that know him, right? So the police cadet program, as well as our police officers, we have one of the most stringent processes in the country. They go through a polygraph examination that gets into a whole bunch of different details, because if we hire the wrong person, the first question that the media and community will ask, well, if you knew this, why did you hire a person? They go through, in addition to background stuff, they have to clear medical, and then there is about a 9-month academy process that they go through. So it is a very, very, very stringent process that we take them through. There's another mother in here who mentioned that to me. I got an answer for her about why her child was not able to, and she understood after I communicated with her. I don't know what your child or son's issues are, but I'll be more than happy to take your name, get back to you, and let you know if there are some concerns. Thank you.
So let me just add to the chief so we can emphasize this point. And this is why you hear me talk about hiring so much. When I became mayor 8 years ago, we had 3,800 officers. Now we have just over 3,300 officers. That's 500 fewer officers. Yet we have people living in places that they didn't live, dining in places that weren't there before, moving around the city in different ways. We've had a COVID pandemic, and we have rising crime all over the country. Yet we have 500 fewer officers. We also had, to Mr. Moten's point, we had a request from our transit agency. We need some help. The transit agency is not set up to have a police officer on every bus, every train, or every platform. They just aren't. And they're down 79 officers. And so we have to have a city where people can get on the bus and get on the train and having presence there. So that's why I authorized our officers to be able to work overtime to support Metro. So when we don't have enough officers, not only can we not pivot to hot areas in your community or pivot to our downtowns if we have something hot, we can't operate in a world-class city with those minimal numbers. So that's why you're going to hear me talking about it throughout this budget process, to make sure we can overcome the less funding that we've had to endure over the last several years. So we're going to go to 3 tables, and then we're going to go to a hot topic on public education. Okay, tables, who's next?
We're going to go up to the bleachers. Bleacher 1 back there. Bleacher 1 back there. Don't worry, bleachers, I see you, don't worry. Bleacher 1, we're going to pull up the results for Bleacher 1, Robert, please.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Grant, CEO of Monument Academy Public Charter School.
Thank you, Doc.
Obviously, I'm going to ask for number one, education. Okay, that's where it goes. Oh, so here we go. My bad. Okay. So that is a huge deal, especially for being a third generation Washingtonian, about to turn 58 years old. So I've seen and heard it all.
Looks great.
You hit on a lot of key points today, starting with education. First of all, we need to revamp education. We are stuck in a 100-plus-year-old model of educating our children, specifically talking about the calendar. The agrarian model calendar that we use to operate 180 school days, off on the weekend, off in the summers, does not address the needs of every child in this city. Learning loss takes place over the summer. Learning loss takes place when you go home to a home where the adults are undereducated, uneducated, so the conversations around the breakfast and dinner tables differ. So there's a lack of exposure from home to home, neighborhood to neighborhood, community to community.
So, Doc, are you making a recommendation specific to the budget about what we need to do about
yes,
that?
Let's put that money into revamping how we educate our kids. You're on point. Additional time on task, quality time on task is important to expose our children so that we can decrease over the long haul and having to put money in other areas, because we'll have less unemployment, we will have less homelessness, and right now we want to advocate for that because we have to address the adults as well, because you can't send children home to ill households.
I got it. Thank you for that. Next table.
We're going to go. Who wants to go next? Which table? Let's go to table 19 right there. Table 19.
Table 19.
We're going to pull up the results.
Hello, my name is Michelle. I'm a first-generation native Washingtonian. I started my education at Brea Public Charter School, and I graduated from the illustrious Duke Ellington School of the Arts, and I also graduated from college here in D.C. at Trinity Washington University.
All right.
I'm here to advocate for our education, which is what we invested the most in. Why? We all want police officers. We all want nurses. We all want great things in our city. But how do we achieve that if we don't invest in our education? Education provides you with the tools to be able to, one, support your family, have opportunities for college. So I am asking for us to please invest in education, because now I am the first graduate in my entire immigrant family. I have a full-time management consulting job at Accenture, and that's all thanks to education,
all right.
thanks to DCPS. So let's fund DCPS.
Pathway to the middle class right there. I like it. So I promised you a hot topic in public education. Would it be too difficult to show the pie chart of the budget?
No, we can do the pie chart of the budget real quick. Let's
put
that
up
slide
the pie chart of the budget.
I think that's slide 3, Robert.
Because
Slide 4.
we've heard a lot about investments in public education.
There we go.
So I want you all to see what we're currently investing in public education. Out of our $20 billion budget, Chancellor, we invest $4 billion. And I want the Chancellor to ask you a hot topic in public education.
Hello. Thank you so much for all of you decided that education is at the top of your list. I also want to recognize that we are in the amazing Eastern Senior High School, the pride of Capitol Hill. Let's give them a round of applause. Also, you already heard, we've got DC Public Schools alumni, parents, and students in the building. Let's give it up for DC Public Schools. So, as many of you have already figured out, what we are asking you to do is to think about trade-offs. Because we don't have an infinite amount of resources. Now, I am biased, as many of you probably are, that the resources for our young people are never enough. Never enough. But the reality is we do have to make some tough choices. And so my hot topic is about a trade-off. I want you to listen carefully. Should the city give more money to schools who have a larger number of students that are identified at risk? Oh, let me finish. It's trade-offs. Even if it means that schools that have fewer at-risk students will have to cut existing staff to pay for it. Yeah, it got challenging, didn't it? That's the question before you.
Who wants to answer that hot topic question? Let's see. I see in the back. Can we get a mic there, Grace?
Hello, thank you. I am Alice McFarland, ANC Commissioner for 8B06. Ward 8! The Great 8! So, I have a 16-year-old daughter. She had the opportunity to attend Deal. Now she's at Bar Early College. And so when you say about making a trade-off, so the environment that she's currently in, they are at risk. But when you say at risk, in my opinion, most Native Washingtonians, most people that live in low socioeconomic statuses suffer from PTSD. So with that being said, the trade-off would be more education about things of that nature, because you can't educate the mind if mentally you're unstable. And it can't just address the children, it has to address the household. So with that being said, yes, I would take that trade-off 100%.
Thank you, thank you. And just so you know, there is a definition for identifying students at risk, and much of what you described is implied in that definition. But I also wanted to share with everyone a little bit more about Bar Early College. Bar Early College is one of our first public schools of choice in our Eastern River communities that provides students the opportunity to earn a college associate's degree in high school for free. No cost to the student. They get a jump start on college and earn college credit while they're in high school. Anybody else want to respond to the question?
We'll take two more. Let's go. Table 7, I see you over there. Table 7, let's get a mic to him. Yeah, behind? Yeah, standing. Yeah, or whoever. Table 7.
I think my name is Jimmy Jenkins, CEO and founder of Manpower DC. We are a program that's in all KIPP DC public charter schools, and we provide programmatic activities for kids who are at risk. Being a kid who graduated from DC, who grew up in poverty, I would take the trade-off, more specifically because many of our kids have struggled from the investment, and I think this investment is needed in most of our Ward 8 schools to provide programmatic things, but more importantly, to give our kids access to economic opportunities. And education is a tool, but we still have tools, like we need to bring vocational back to schools to create that middle class that we once had. We need to also provide more things that kids would like to be. Entrepreneurs. We have kids who want to get into cyber coding and all these things. So I would take that investment because our kids need those things. So that's just my spiel right there.
Thank you.
All right, we got time for one more. Table 13, I see you right there raising your hand. Let's get the mic to her.
Well, you gotta bring it up. I'm tall. All right. There we go. All right. So good day. My name is Freya Moore, and I'm a parent that represents a child at Duke Ellison High School. So I wouldn't take the trade-off because the students up there are flourishing. I do live in Ward 8, but I sent my son up there with the lottery to, penetrate his arts and develop his skill in writing and whatnot. So I wouldn't take the trade-off because now they're going to take teachers and the budget from that school where the students are exceeding very well, and they have a history of exceeding very well even when they come out of high school and go into college and into the workforce. So it needs to be a balance, because we begin to create a shift that the dynamic is we have to put so much into children who aren't able to flourish until they get the mental health stability, and then we leave those children who are ready and are aiming to move forward at a stagnant position because their income and their home environment is below the poverty level. So we still have to find a balance for students who are ready to move forward.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go back to some table readouts. So if your table is ready to share.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Are we wrapping up?
You want to wrap up?
We have, okay, we said one more table. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Last table, Tomas.
Let's go to table 5.
Table 5. Let's see if I see your table tally.
There we go.
There we go. And you have put the most into education and workforce. Tell us why.
So, good afternoon. You hear me? Good afternoon. You hear me a little bit? A little bit? Hi, I'm Keisha from PAVE. Can you hear me? So the reason we chose education as where we wanted to give the most of our money was because of our PAVE priorities. And our priorities are adding $10 million to Learn 24 grants and adding additional money for OST seats. We also wanted to add money for covering security costs. We wanted to decrease the UPSF by at least 5% to keep up with inflation, and of course to continue to work on the high quality training and assessment study. So that's why we chose education as where we would give the most of our funding.
All right, I love your specifics. Thank you, PAVE. So I think everybody, we're past our time. We've had some great discussion. I should point out that we've been doing this a number of years, and I think this is the most I've seen invested in housing and economic development. And so I think that is a recognition of all the work that we have to do to make DC more affordable. I also saw the investments in government operations meet what the assistant city administrator asked for. So I think that is helpful as well. But you can see the tough job that we have ahead of us. And I just want to finish with kind of giving you an outlook on what I think we have to be prepared for this year and in the next years. Kevin reminded me that when I became mayor, we had $15 billion to spend on our priorities. And because of how well our city has been doing, that number grew to $20 billion in 8 years. And that has allowed us to invest in schools and in human services, to make sure that almost everybody in DC has insurance, that we can transform our homeless system, that we can have universal pre-K, that we have the #1 park system in the country. All of those things we have been able to invest in. And then we had COVID, where our city was shut down, our kids went home, our businesses closed, our federal workers work at home, a lot of them, most of them. And what impact does that have on that $20 billion? Who wants to answer that question? Anybody? This is the impact. The impact is a lot of that $20 billion comes from our commercial property taxes. And those commercial properties are valuable because of all the jobs we have in DC. If the number of jobs goes down or is at home working, the value of those properties goes down. And if the value of those properties go down, likely that $20 billion also goes down. And it may not be that much this year. It may be a little bit more next year. Or maybe we're so successful in revitalizing our downtown that nothing changes. But as your mayor, it's my job to be prepared for if that number changes. And if it does change, you know, just like when you do your budget, if you have less money coming in, you have a couple choices. You can cut or you can get more money. You know what the government does when it gets more money, when it needs more money, right? It goes to you. And so I think that we can invest in our priorities with the money that we have. I know it for sure. If we have a little bit less, we can continue to invest in our priorities, and we'll work very hard to do it in the most efficient way possible. I have pledged, and I believe it's important to say this, that we will not raise your residential property taxes. And I think that's a conversation that you need to have with your council members too. So there are things that we need to do to make sure we have a city that's affordable for everybody. And a lot of what we just heard today was how do we keep families here? And how do we better take care of our families? And how can we protect and grow our middle class? How do we make sure that we have jobs that pay a good wage? So if I was born here, like many of you, 5 generations in Washington, D.C., that my daughter will be able to afford to live in Washington, D.C. That's the job that we're here to do today. So this is why this budget season is so important. We're going to propose a budget. The council's going to work on our budget. And at the end of the day, we will have a balanced budget. And so I'm inviting you to stay engaged in that process because this is your city, this is your money, and this is our future together. So thanks for taking 2 hours on a Saturday to spend with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, again, so much for participating. You can continue to share your results at budget.dc.gov. You'll share your priorities there. We are also going to post the average of the games there, so if you want to see what the final average was, we will have that up today on budget.dc.gov. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you.